Now, one thing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe that I'll say is very real at this point is that we already know that Kevin Feige and Bob Iger, they are scrambling to really make things work for the Marvel Cinematic Universe because of all the flops that happened throughout 2023 and even in 2024 in scattered areas. But one thing is for certain is that when it comes down to the Fantastic Four, when it comes down to Pedro Pascal and his politics and how much of an impact it's having on the MCU, whenever he actually spews out his politics, it creates wider issues. And now he's beginning to actually go against the Ironheart backlash, especially in the midst of the drag queen backlash. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, one thing that I think a lot of people need to notice here is the fact that Pedro Pascal seemingly gets away with everything when it comes to his political views, his overall agenda getting pushed out there into the public, and Disney practically does nothing about it. We know that they actually dialed back on his appearances for Fantastic Four as a result, but it wasn't a punishment big enough for Pedro Pascal. But let's get into the overall, nitty-gritty details about all of this when it comes down to the whole Ironheart situation. Now, one thing about Ironheart is that we know that this thing is releasing next week, less than a week away on June 24th, debuting with a 3-episode premiere, half the entire show. It's going to go out there in one day, alright? That shows you that they have zero confidence in this thing. And that Bob Iger and Kevin Feige, they decided upon to do that. They're going to have one episode after the other throughout July to finish and wrap up the series. However, with the Walt Disney Company and Marvel already in panic mode over the performance of Ironheart, so far the press tour has been a disaster for the series leading up to its June 24th release. Now, one major development going on now involves more to do with Ironheart Backlash and how now actor Pedro Pascal decided to go off at critics and Marvel fans. Pedro delivered the following. I think right now that we are living in a very flawed and scary society where DEI is seen as something horrible and as a horrible thing for our culture and for the industry. I mean, you just look at the response coming in from so-called Marvel fans toward Ironheart, which looks fantastic, by the way. It's just disgusting behavior coming from grown adults, grown men, women, and families that are clearly not educated on the importance of LGBTQ. It's something that every man, woman, and family should value and respect, whether it's in the movies or television. I completely expected this type of response coming from the toxic side of this fandom. Clearly, there are issues with a woman of color playing a hero in a series that adopts the ideas from Iron Man. It's despicable, and clearly nobody knows what they are talking about when they are criticizing a show that hasn't even released yet. So far, of course, so what if it focuses on LGBTQ? Does it really matter if that's the focus? Because sometimes I think it's important things like that are more important than the story. I am rooting for Riri Williams, a character that not only, of course, had a short time in the MCU, but now finally gets the recognition that she deserves. And to Dominique Thorne, she gets our full support for representing LGBTQ in the best way possible, from myself and from, of course, Mr. Robert Downey Jr. To the fans that hold a politically driven agenda against a character like Riri, clearly have to resolve their own issues and their views on life. Not everything revolves around the fans. Sometimes you have to make choices, bold choices, to create fairness and balance in this industry. And we are seeing that now finally with Ironheart that respects so many different communities around the globe. I am all for trans rights, I am all for diversity, and this is a show that honors all of that. Now guys, let me just stop right there. Now, this is happening all after the fact that Marvel announced that they're gonna have, drag queen actresses, actors, whatever have you, playing drag queen characters in this show. And one thing about that is that this is exactly why it's gonna be on par with the BACKLASH series, because when you're focusing on an agenda, when you're focusing on the messaging and really just shoehorning your overall agenda, nobody is going to care about the story, because there is no story, right? There's literally no story when it comes down to Ironheart so far, based on the trailers, based on the leaks, based on what the press tour has been telling us about everything related to Ironheart. It's nothing more than an agenda fest by Disney. And Pedro Pascal is obviously, you know, the mouthpiece for Ironheart as well. You know, we know that they're forcing Robert Downey Jr. to do the same, to really kind of root for Ironheart, root for Dominique Thorne, root for the show. I don't know if you guys saw him, I believe it was on Good Morning America just the other day. Correct me if I'm wrong. Where he said, Iron Man loves Ironheart, and he gives out a big heart symbol with his hands. This is all being instructed, by the way, by Bob Iger and, of course, by Kevin Feige. But make no mistake, Robert Downey Jr. is all for the support of Ironheart, alright? Now, one thing is for certain about this is that we know that Pedro Pascal is way more vocal about this series. You don't have Robert Downey Jr. saying, you know, ludicrous things like this, for sure. He's just showing his support for the show and calling it quits after that, right? He's not really going out of boundaries, acting like a lunatic. Pedro, however, on the other hand, is. And that's why there's a lot of Pedro Pascal fatigue going on right now. People are seeing this guy in everything. The Last of Us, Marvel, and other things like Star Wars. I mean, the list goes on. Comedy movies, action movies. He's everywhere, and people are just tired of him. Now, he goes on to conclude, I just feel that Marvel fans need to grow up and gain better knowledge and education about what DEI really is. It's nothing. It's nothing that divides people. It brings people together. Because of this administration, we are living in scary times right now, with DEI getting abolished. It's refreshing to see both Disney and Marvel holding that courage that they have to put the series out there on Disney Plus to show the world what they are capable of doing by promoting common sense in this industry. We need more examples of Ironheart, programs that respect all communities, as I mentioned. We need more series like this that bring everyone together, and shame on the fans for putting them in a more difficult position. Again, I mean, there you have it, Pedro Pascal getting very bitter and defensive, much like Bob Iger, much like Kevin Feige, and among others out there that want to make this show work as much as they can, but they're acting very hypocritical because we all know behind the scenes, we talked about this, there's a lot of panic going on about this show. They're trying to suppress the appearance of the show when it comes to the marketing campaign, when it comes to the TV spots, for obvious reasons. They want to lower the amount of backlash, but at the same exact time, they want to, of course, please the one side that loves this thing, Ironheart. There are a lot of people out there, such as the top 3 shareholders, mind you, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, who are trying to really make the show work as well. But what's interesting about this is that, yes, we know that Pedro Pascal, he's not going to stop with his politics. He even openly admitted this just 2 weeks ago, that he will not stand down being vocal about his view on things, regardless of whoever tells him to actually shut up or to remain silent over his political views. He doesn't care. And we already know that Disney gave him multiple warnings about this. They went into full Rachel Zegler mode against him, kind of like what they did with Zegler. They told her to just, you know, quiet it down, and he's not doing that. He's not quieting down at all, seemingly. But overall, I would love to hear what everyone has to say about all of this below in the comments, everything ranging from Pedro to Ironheart to Riri Williams as a character. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I'll catch you guys later.